Alright you guys, so this is going to be a little bit of a build log for my little Thermaltake Core V21 case modding. It shouldn't be too long, shouldn't be too many videos, maybe one or two. Yeah, so as we can see, this is a full-size ATX motherboard. I don't know why it's having so much trouble focusing. I don't know what's going on. There we go. So this is the full-size ATX motherboard that I have, and as we can see, it does fit within the parameters of the little case walls right here. But as we can see, it doesn't quite line up there. So one of the things I was thinking about doing was going ahead and lining up the I/O plate, and basically it would line up, and then I would have access to my graphics card as well as my internet card, but then these last two cards would not be usable. Basically I would trim a latch in right here so this could go all the way in, and then cut a hole in the bottom of the case around, and then put like a little seal underneath it, because obviously with these case feet here I'd have enough clearance to have this motherboard sticking out about ½ an inch. But who wants to do that? So basically, shit, I'm having a little trouble moving this thing here. Trying to pick it up and move it. Alrighty. So basically what I'm going to end up doing though is I'm going to be trimming along the edge out here, around here, because we have this wasted space right here, all the way to the edge, and then trim the whole thing out, this whole PCI, and sorry I was smoking, the whole PCI bracket area and the whole I/O plate. And I will be using a donor case. Now, this is my nzxt Phantom 240. So there's a few good points about doing this and bad points. Good point number one, I don't have to buy a donor case because I have one. Good point number one, there's no turning back once I start doing this. Or number two, I mean good point. And good point number three is that this case, like most cases, is completely riveted. And one of the main reasons that's going to make this easy is if you guys look right here, this is rivets all the way around the PCI bracket and I/O shield, and basically this is just one separate piece. So in theory, if I undo all of these rivets, this whole bracket should just come out right here. This whole piece, this like giant weird shaped L thingy, should just come right out. If we look in the inside, we can see how it's like separate from the rest of the material, and it's just basically riveted on. So that should make for kind of an easy I/O shield thing to happen there. So I have basically a shell for it. Now the downsides. Okay, so downsides. First off, obviously this is white and this is black. So I'll either paint those black or paint this white. I don't know. I'll probably just paint it black because it's easier. Same thing also, I forgot to point out, up here, if you could see, there's a rivet right there. All the way around, there's rivets all the way to the top to this back plate, which is going to hold the motherboard. So all I have to do is drill out those rivets, and this whole motherboard back plate will come out, and then I just trim it to size, and then can put it in the case and have basically a plate to mount my motherboard to. Another bad thing about this though is if I fuck this up, I ruin one $70 case and one $80 case. So hopefully I don't fuck it up, but you know, that's, you gotta experiment and have some fun with things, right, you guys? Sorry, I had to cough. So otherwise this would just, I mean, well, you know, gotta do stuff like this. Gotta have some fun every now and then. But yeah, so we're gonna start cutting. Well, first actually I'm gonna start drilling. I'm gonna start drilling out all the pieces in here to kind of get the parts that I want, which is going to be the motherboard tray and the PCI and I/O tray. So we'll come back once I got those all drilled out. Alrighty, so I've gotten the ones in the back. See if you can see they're loose, and it's loose now. See what I mean by it's a separate piece? So the thing that's holding it back though is the motherboard tray is still bolted in there, so I have to undo the motherboard tray, and once that pops out, this should come out with it. They are separate pieces, but the motherboard tray kind of latches this in there. So we're going to draw out the rest of the rivets real quick. So as you guys can see, after those last couple of rivets, bam, we have my little, basically my bracket that I'm going to be using for my I/O and PCI slots. That way I don't have to custom make one because it saves a lot of time. And for the most part, we technically didn't even ruin the case. If I really have to, all you got to do is replace these rivets with little screws, and you can actually screw the whole thing back together if you really wanted to. I don't know. I hopefully won't have to do that. So here is my motherboard tray, nicely pulled out, ready to have some modifying done to it. Alright, so we have my little plate, and we're going to turn the case around real quick. And as we can see, this is going to be one hell of a tight fit, you guys. Look at that. There's literally basically enough for this to press up against the outer walls of the inside, and that is it. So I will be screwing this in. I'm gonna screw it in so that way it's got some holding on it. So I'm not really sure about this part because it pops out, and I'm not sure if I should leave it popping out throughout the entire thing like that, or if I should trim down the sides, but that will honestly weaken this part of the metal, which I don't want to do. So I might just leave it like that to kind of keep it in check, I guess. But as you can see, none of the PCI slots line up. If I put it like that, it'll be sticking off too far on the edge right here, which I don't want. So I'm gonna have to move it over, which is why I'm gonna have to cut out this entire part right here and basically replace it with this one. I might actually be able to push this in, and that'll move the motherboard over inward a little bit, which wouldn't be a problem, and then I could have it sunk in. But if I do that, I might have to get rid of some pieces on this bottom part right here. I could drill the rivets out and basically remove this motherboard tray, but I do not want to do that because this motherboard tray is what's going to be holding up this motherboard tray. And as we can see, you guys, it's not long enough to reach over here to basically screw it in from both sides, and I really don't feel like making brackets. I will be trimming it though. I'm basically going to cut it for the last parts, basically around the screws that I need. So my motherboard is not long enough to reach the full-size motherboard screws right here, right there, and right here. So normally I would cut it off a little early, but just in case in the future, if I ever do get a motherboard that is long enough to fit with these, a full-size motherboard, I am going to make sure I leave those intact. That way, like I said, I won't have to make a new motherboard tray in the future if I do upgrade a different motherboard. And I can basically just keep this as an ATX case. Though I probably will change cases in the future just out of boredom, like I am doing right now. Basically purely out of boredom, I guess. And honestly, I love doing some modifications like this. It's always fun. So yeah, I'm gonna do some measurements and take some measurements, I guess, and kind of plan out how I want this. For the most part, I will be just winging it, you guys. I don't suggest doing that, but I'm not the best planner when it comes to shit like this, so I like to just wing it. Eventually I'll figure out how to get it done. I got tons of spare metal brackets and screws and all that stuff, so I'm pretty sure I can get something to work out. Alright, you guys, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a grinder. I could use the Dremel on this, but I'm going to use the grinder because this is a little bit more surface area and I want to get it done quick. So I'm going to use the grinder to cut this to size. Now, one thing with using a grinder, I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people know this, but a lot of people are probably like, that's stupid. Well, I've had some pretty close calls with stuff like this, power tools. I've had ones with like lopsided rotors on them, or lopsided cutting discs. So you always want to check and make sure your cutting disc is still in good shape. You don't want to put a bad one on there. I've had these blow up on me several times, and these can hurt you, believe it or not. So you always want to check. Another thing was this bracket was loose, so I tightened it down to make sure it's all ready to go, because I haven't used it in a little while. But you want to make sure that it's all ready to go, and it doesn't have any issues with it, because like I said, it only takes a little bit for something to go wrong, and it's definitely something you don't want. So we're going to make sure it's nice and tight on there. We're not cutting anything heavy duty, so I'm not worried too much about it. But at the same time, I want to make sure that it's, you know what I mean, ready to go. I don't want to accidentally cut myself, and that brings me to another thing, safety goggles. Now, I've seen a lot of people use a Dremel without safety goggles. I used to be one of those people. I had a Dremel tip explode on me, one of the cutting wheels, while I was cutting something, and it blew up, and a chunk flew off and hit me in the eye, and it hurt really bad. it hit me right underneath my eye and cut me. And it hurt pretty bad. It made my eyes water, made me sneeze a little bit too. It's kind of one of those really stinging kind of hurts. So ever since then, I wear goggles while doing practically everything, as well as I also had an incident with battery acid. I actually was filling up a battery and a little bit splashed up on my face and a little bit got in my eye, so I ran to the sink and washed it out. But that's another thing. I wear goggles not messing with any chemicals. That's basically how I learned my lesson. Luckily for me, I had no damage to my eyes, but that's why safety goggles, dude. Safety first. Just take my word for it. Don't learn the hard way like I did, because you might not be so lucky like I was. Another thing we're gonna need to figure out how to do. Get rid of this. I'm gonna have to figure out how to stabilize this thing down to the table, because I can't find my damn C-clamps. So I'm gonna put it towards the edge so you can actually see the cut. But I can't find my C-clamps. I have no idea where they are. I don't know how comfortable I am cutting this without it though. So give me a second while I look for them. So I can't find my C-clamps, but I found a pipe wrench. So we're just going to try and make the best of a shitty situation. And no, I do not condone of this stuff. I wouldn't suggest doing this. I'm doing it because I've done a lot of things ghetto before, and I've done it with way more intense parts than this. But at the same time, I'm still a little uncomfortable with a rotary tool spinning at like 12,000 RPMs and cutting a thin piece of metal, because you never know what might happen. Shit might go flying. So I'm not sure if this is even going to latch on well. So, might have to look for something else. Maybe if I latch it at the top. I have a, I can't remember what they're called. One of the giant bench clamps, but I want it to be held vertical or horizontally. I don't want it vertical. So what I'm going to do now, this is actually really heavy, so I can use this. Right here, this is really heavy. Okay, so what I'm going to use to help hold it down is this. This is from one of my bikes, my first motorcycle I ever bought, and I was doing work on it, and after about a year of owning it, that happened. You guys can see right here. See how it's missing the 3 valves? It's all chewed up, and one of the valves is like completely bent. Yeah, I dropped a piston into the crankcase and completely shredded the engine. So this is the head, and this thing's pretty damn heavy. So we're just gonna kind of lay it on it for extra security, and for the most part, as long as I'm careful, that doesn't look like it's gonna go anywhere. Hopefully it doesn't. If I start to see any movement, then I'm probably gonna stop and switch to something else. Another thing while using crazy types of power tools like buzz saws and skill saws and all that stuff, make sure you have a good place for your cord or an extension cord so you don't step on it and accidentally jerk it into yourself. You don't want to do that. Power tools aren't really too dangerous, but they can be dangerous in the hands of the wrong people, so keep that in mind. I'd be smart enough to remember that I have a lot of gasoline and flammable products in here, and I should probably watch where I shoot sparks. But for some reason, I never learned my lesson. So, sorry, I had a gas tank over there. I had to move. There's carburetors and stuff on the table, but they're all cleaned up. And yeah. So yeah, make sure you're not spraying sparks on gas. I've actually seen my friend light his leg on fire because of that. So be careful. Also, watch which way you're pointing the stuff. Sparks go flying everywhere, once again, while you wear safety goggles. So, back to work. Getting a little nervous here because this doesn't have a dead man switch on it. Like, you push the switch on and it stays on. So dead man switch is basically if something's not pressing it down, it shuts off. So this doesn't have one, and if you've ever had one of these get loose from you, like get stuck on the wheel and yank forward and just take off, it won't shut off on its own. So I like to hold it with 2 hands just in case, and right now this thing's slipping a little bit, so hopefully I can finish it without having any troubles. Not the straightest cut, but you gotta remember what I'm using to hold this thing down, so I'm going to grind it down a little bit and straighten it out a little more. But I just want to get the main pieces of it cut off that I don't want. So, yeah, this might need to be cleaned off. I'm going to paint this black anyways. So, it needs to be cleaned off now because I just got a bunch of oil over it. There's still oil on that broken ass engine. Alright you guys, so I finished cutting this out. It's a decent square. It's pretty good. I'm going to take the Dremel now and take the little rotor, like not the cutting tool but a grinding tool, and I'm going to clean up the edges all the way around real quick. And then I'm also, I did end up cutting the ledge off right here that I originally said I was going to keep, and that was because I can use the I/O plate cover bracket that they gave me that I took out, and I can use that to line this up, so I don't really need a straight edge right here to line it up, so that's fine with me. Basically, I could have cut a piece of metal and just made a tray, but at the same time, this has support for all sizes in motherboards, so for future upgrades or whatever I want to do in the future, this can support all motherboard sizes in here, so that's a plus. Yeah, cool. We'll come back and check in later on. Alright you guys, so I dremeled down the edges and smoothed them out a little bit, so now I'm just going to take some heavy grit sandpaper, like 40, 50, 100, whatever, doesn't matter, and just give it a quick, like, pull over to make sure I get all these metal chunks off of it so it's not sharp anymore, because I don't want sharp edges. And basically this plate is done, and then I'll start working on the case. Alright you guys, so now that those parts are mostly done for the most part, just going to be some last second adjustments before I mount them in. Basically those adjustments are going to be made on the fly because, like I said to you guys earlier, I'm not the kind of person that plans shit ahead. I just kind of roll with it, which isn't really a good thing. I'm going to use this and grind these down real quick. There we go. That's good enough for me. Honestly, doesn't really bother me too much. None of this is going to be seen anyways. It's going to be covered by the new motherboard tray, which is also going to be painted black, and will also be cleaned up a little bit more before the finishing overall finish of it. But as we can see, fits in there nicely. This part has a little lip, but it's probably because I'm gonna install it coming in from this way. But oops, sorry. But as we can see, besides this little lip right here, this lip, it will fit in here like perfectly in between the sections. See, this lip is like stopping it from going in, which I probably could force it in. There we go. There we go. So you guys want to see? That's basically what it's going to be like. And I got this little locking mechanism in there to lock it, and bam. So technically I could just install it right now, honestly, and just put some screws in there and do a little bit of cutting, but obviously I want to clean it up a little better than that. But basically having this fit perfectly in between, as well as having these clips, if you guys remember me saying that these have this little holes right here, and these have these little clip off ends right there, and basically what that does is it lines it up and it clips in here. Once again, more perks about using parts that are already meant to go together. See, this clips in there and holds it in place. So this is actually already perfectly in place and lines it. Basically will line the motherboard tray up with the I/O and PCI slot panel. That way I don't have to worry about taking crazy measurements and trying to get everything to line up perfectly. This will automatically line it up for me. And that's basically what it'll look like. Let me see if I can give you guys a little bit more better of a view. So yeah, and that'll be painted black, and as we can see, I still have a good amount of clearance in between there, good amount of clearance in between that side too. Kind of hard to tell, but the clearance is there. If not, I can just cut that middle piece off and get rid of it. But yeah, and I could still use an SSD mount right there if I really wanted to. So that's pretty cool. Give you guys more updates when I get them, but yeah.